Hey, let us begin the program.
For Thursday, May 19th, 2022. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested. Hello, friends, and welcome to the podcast. This week, you have, once again, a dual cast. Kishore, good to see you in the NHL, from the universe of the NHL playoffs. And I am yeah?
I'm never not watching hockey. I'm watching hockey right now. What are you talking about?
I'm actually pretty sure you still are at the time we're recording this. I could see the reflection on your glasses.
What's the point of having multiple screens?
Exactly. The multitasking in the multiverse.
I will tell you, I got an iPad Pro a couple weeks ago, and first of all, delightful device. Love it. I also got a new MacBook Pro today, and so the switchover is happening, Norm.
Wow.
I'm fully embracing.
The phone's the last thing.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Now in green, I heard. So, I'm not far away. But iPad Pro, best second screen ever in like this multi-sport environment. Because when there was like 4 games on at once, that was the best device for like switching back and forth, rewinding at a click. Really fantastic screen. It was like having a TV in my hand. It was awesome.
Yeah, and now, if you're streaming over things like YouTube TV, the picture actually works. So you can have it in a window while you can browse. The multitasking on that device actually works, finally. But yeah, NHL playoffs going on, NBA playoffs going on in this universe. But we are meeting up to talk about not sports. It's going to be a very pop culture centric episode because we don't want to talk about Twitter. We tried that. People didn't like it. So we're going to stick to what we know best. And there is plenty to talk about. Now, last week, I had not watched the finale to Star Trek Picard. And I think we're going to start there because, first of all, Kishore, I'm going to give you, I'll give you listeners out there a teaser. This weekend, I was in full Star Trek mode. I was down in LA visiting with Adam, our friends at Prop Store. Now, Prop Store has an upcoming auction, their big summer auction, the one they usually have like a big booth at Comic-Con to bring costumes and props, and we do a bunch of videos there. And we've been down to their warehouse before where they have like all it's like imagine the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Right, where the Ark of the Covenant is being rolled away in a crate. It's like that warehouse, except for movie props and costumes. And
it's the Ark of the Covenant, except it has like the L-Cross, a set piece from TNG or something.
Or it might even actually have the Ark of the Covenant. One of the things we saw was the thing. What is it called in Indiana Jones with the gem in the middle? The staff head,
staff of Ra, I think it was, right?
Yes, yeah. So they had a crew GIF version of that. But anyway, I digress because we're not talking about Indiana Jones. The reason I was in a Star Trek mood is as a part of this big upcoming summer auction, they have some select Star Trek pieces, which I will tease. So while Adam did a bunch of the videos, and we have a bunch coming out over the next month, actually one, the Star Wars one, will be released, I believe, end of next week. And to coincide with Celebration, I laid claim on the Star Trek props and costumes. So I said, please let me do the videos about the Star Trek props. And Adam said, sure, go for it. And I geeked out. And I got to handle, through white gloves, of course, Picard, Cisco, and Janeway's uniforms. So season 3.
That's pretty special.
Yep.
That's already a little bit too much for me in my current state. That's pretty epic. What else you got?
I gave the Picard shirt, the tug. I gave it the Picard maneuver. You'll see it on camera. I asked permission. I was able to give it a nice little tug. So the check box off that bucket list. They also had Hughes of Borg, Hughes' costume from his episode in Next Generation, his season 5 iBorg episode.
So is it just like all the prosthetics?
It's a prosthetic on a mannequin.
Mhm.
prosthetics over. You remember it was all foam
Yeah.
latex, like with the tubing. Up close, you can see like spray painted black, like computer ribbon cables, just like glued to the shoulders. There's like one greebly part that's they kit bashed and then clearly made a mold, and but it's like the headpiece plus the shoulder piece plus all, it's like repeated throughout. I believe the torso, it was a mishmash of parts. I think it came from Paramount, but it was like top part was all hue, and I think
Mhm.
the tubing wasn't exactly as it was arranged. I was trying to compare with the screenshots as it was in the show, but the lower torso, the sculpted abs and cod piece, Locutus's abs and cod piece, also got to touch those through white
You
gloves.
you did lose me at codpiece.
I mean, it's a one singular piece. You remember how that was? Yeah, you
Yeah,
remember? Yeah,
but it
yeah.
also holds the cod.
I
I
mean,
don't need that in
yes,
my
yeah,
life.
yes. The Picard, that's what it holds. And then in terms of Star Trek props, they had a miniature of the shuttle, the Defiant shuttle, the Type 18 class
Oh,
shuttle
cool.
at I think I want to say 1/18th scale is what it was. Super detailed. There was really cool parts where they it was mounted on C stands and things, so they could do the filming on a green screen. Incredibly detailed. Looked better than any like Playmates toy. It was actually like real miniature work. And they did have the L Cars panel from Star Trek Generations. You remember when Geordi has the visor that's being hacked by the Dura sisters, right? And they see through
Mhm.
his point of view, and they need to find the shield modulation frequency, right? And they pinpoint it, freeze frame right there. That panel that Geordi looks at, they had that exact panel, the one from
Was that
Generations.
in engineering or is that on the bridge?
It's in engineering. He's in engineering. He's
Yeah.
walking around. They freeze frame it. They find the shield, the frequency, and then they were able to shoot their disruptors through the Enterprise shields and blow it up at the end of Generation. So I got to bear witness to all those things. Worf sash, Worf,
Like
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 from the later
the
seasons. Yes,
metal.
the metal and leather interwoven piece. Yeah,
That's
it,
pretty impressive.
yeah,
That's cool.
I'm still riding on a high from that trip and all the other amazing things. That's just a glimpse of some of the stuff and the Star Trek stuff that I was most excited to see there. But anyway, I was in a Star Trek frame of mind because I got to see that, and I also finally saw the finale to season 2 of Star Trek Picard. So I did want to talk to you about that to kick off this show. Maybe not a huge deep dive, and I don't know if we should do spoilers. What do you think? Is it a show? Yeah, no, yeah.
I don't think we need to do spoilers. I think we could do general reactions and we'll talk about like the moments that are compelling and nothing in there is really much of a spoiler. This was the best episode of the season,
It stuck the
and
landing. I can't believe it.
yeah, it stuck the landing. And I actually watched it a second time and I was like, is this actually good or good in relation to the garbage that was the second half of that season? And I'd have to say it like stood up as like a decent TNG episode. It tied up a lot of loose ends. The arc for Picard made sense. The arc for in resolution for a lot of characters made sense. There were still a couple moments you like rolled your eyes and were like, that's not a good way to wrap up that storyline. There's a moment that there is classical music played, and you're like, that whole storyline didn't make sense to me. But what I thought was the best part again, and it was the best part in episode 1, is Q and Picard having
John
a moment.
Delancey. I mean, I, it's like you could watch episode 1 and 10, and that's it. That's all you really
Yep.
needed of that show. I think season 2 has the same faults as season 1 in that they kind of wrote it backwards. They like came up with an emotional conclusion, an arc that they wanted the viewer to feel that would tap into something. Season 1, his relationship with Data, that unfinished business with Picard and Data. They came up with like that beautiful scene with Picard chatting with Data in his mind to give the closure. Right, it's a series. The whole series is about closure, and then reverse engineered 10 episodes out of that. But like, there's just too much filler. It's like a 2-part, 3-part special could have got you that without the need to introduce new characters necessarily, or give those new, you can have new characters, but give those new characters arcs that you don't necessarily care about.
Yeah, it it was satisfying, and I think, like you said, this would have been better as like a 6 episode season. That's what they had story for. And we oftentimes like had entire episodes where nothing happened in terms of progressing the plot.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, and there's a lot of unnecessary set pieces that existed, that when you watch episode 1 and 10, you're like, why did we go there for an
Yeah.
episode?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and so at the end of the day, they left open a thread that will likely be the anchor for season 3.
A big
Um,
mystery. Yep.
and they closed off a lot of the plot lines for the current cast, which
Yeah.
is kind of what you wanted out of
Yeah.
this season.
Wow.
And you feel like Picard is entering season 3 whole. Like, a lot of the cynicism that we saw in Jean-Luc Picard when we met him at the beginning of season 1, I think a lot of it's gone now.
Hmm. Yeah, and season 3 might be the show we've been waiting for 3
Mhm.
years. The one when they first announced this show, and I'm glad to have these 2 seasons of Picard. I like some of the new characters. I think it's very appropriate, even though I didn't anticipate it, for them to actually wrap up the storylines. And those actors have said they're not coming back for season 3. I think only 7 of 9's coming back. Um, and Raffi, I believe, is coming back as well, but we don't know if like Loris is coming back.
Mhm.
And they, of course, have said the original cast of Next Generation also having a big presence, but we don't know what the Brent Spiner role would be, because Data's story has concluded. Although they found a way to get him in, Brent Spiner into this season, and didn't particularly like that that
Nope.
storyline, nor the way they ended it.
Conclusion.
Yeah, yeah.
Conclusion was a big fat eye roll.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. It's very not to dismiss, like, it was very CW TV is what I felt like, a little bit of that. But very excited for season 3. I'm very glad they did stick the Picard storyline, and introduce a big part of his background, and had it reconcile with the past, like the past, the previous family stuff that we'd seen before, with his brother, with his mother, the vision he saw on the ship. And so they've kind of reconciled that. They never really, I think, tapped into the angst that he felt in Generations, though, being the last Picard. And that was what I think it was a missing part of this show so far.
Yeah, I will say it overall was not a good season. I can't give it like a recommendation. That being said, everyone I know that has started watching the new Anson Mount show loves it, and says it is a return to episodic TOS or TNG, self-contained stories week to week. And I'm a little trekked out after Picard, so I haven't watched it. But I think I'm reserving a little hope in my heart that is a return to form, because I think that's when Star Trek is at its best, is when it's telling a weekly story that may have a longer arc over the course of a season, but it is mostly self-contained.
Mostly self-contained, and also kind of it's a prequel, but there's only so many places it can go. Like, it's not going to be this big grand serialized thing, because at some point they're going to get to Kirk, and there's already Spock on the show, and what they do with the Pike character, and the information they give him, his take on their characterization here, does nicely fit in with what they've shown in Pike before. I think it's pieces of original series Pike, but they're definitely getting the J.J. Abrams, a little bit that the charming aspect of Pike on that show as well. We're gonna switch gears a bit to Star Wars because a lot of Star Wars news dropped. There is all basically brought out by the kind of you can kind of like it's like clockwork. Every time we're ready for new Star Wars big movie or big show, Vanity Fair has got to have this incredible Annie Leibovitz photo shoot and cover story. I'm a sucker for those. I will go to my local Safeway and buy that magazine next time I'm out in the world because I have the one for when they did the sequel trilogy. It's gorgeous photos. I'm a big fan of her photography, and when she gets to photograph Star Wars characters, I think it's truly gorgeous. But this is about the next phase of Star Wars, so it's not about the Skywalker saga. On the cover, it's Mando. It's with helmet off. You have Cassian Andor because there's the Andor show coming up. You got Ahsoka, and you got Obi-Wan. So it's obviously teeing up these next Disney Plus shows that are coming out. I don't want to spoil everything that's in there, but it is a huge in-depth story. What did you think of the just the costuming and photos? First of all,
What was the tagline? It's like the rebellion will grow or something like
will
that.
be televised.
The rebellion will be televised. I thought that was a little hokey. So outside of that, I thought seeing Mando next to kind of middle-aged Obi-Wan, I was sort of struck by Cassian. I thought that looked good. Like, I thought the lineup of characters actually was like, I was like, yeah, I'd root for these people. And while it is Obi-Wan Kenobi, they're outside of like they're new characters in a lot of ways, and so I actually appreciated that because I think we haven't seen them tell Star Wars stories. I'm gonna channel Kathleen Kennedy for a second. We haven't seen Star Wars stories where they've been able to retell stories of the original characters well, 30, 40, 50 years on. I think when Luke appeared in Mando and otherwise, story arc was kind of flat. Um, uh, so I'm excited for new characters. Now, this isn't quite new enough for me to get super excited, but in terms of look, I
Yeah,
liked it.
yeah.
It recalled like the diversity of character archetypes that we got in episode 4.
Yeah, and one of the big selling points of not only is it going to be Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan, he's on Tatooine. You're going to get he's the more age appropriate, closer to Sir Alec Guinness's age. From episode 4, everyone's waiting for the Hayden Christensen Vader, and Vader's in the photo shoot as well. So, but that I think that's more going through the motions, and that's going to be like, yes, it's going to be a great performance. I'm sure Obi-Wan's going to have his lightsaber out. It's going to be great for nostalgia. I'm more excited about those new characters, about the Inquisitors that they're bringing in with those dual blades and all that stuff that we've seen mostly in like the comics and the video games, but live action for that era of the Empire.
There is an Inquisitor in some of the cartoons, but yeah, I agree. It's what I actually thought the prequels were going to be about. I thought the prequels were going to set up like by the second movie, we'd have Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader was going to go on like a Jedi assassination spree for like a movie and a half before like having a confrontation with Obi-Wan. Maybe we'll get that with the Inquisitors, where they actually hunt down the Jedi that remain. I think that's very compelling to watch that because it's both tragic and you have a set of heroes that have their backs against the wall. Um, uh, but we know that there's hope in their future. But seeing them struggle to find that hope actually could be a compelling story as long as it's new characters.
The biggest risk almost feels like Andor, because this is a whole mini series that's about a character we only saw in one movie, who wasn't the lead, who was the lead, the main supporting actor. And it's a story that has really nowhere to go for him. Right, we're going to see him with the rebellion and kind of the aspects of the rebellion, sure, because I think Mon Mothma is going to be there, but like he dies in Rogue One. Spoilers, right? Like, so it's just it's maybe the riskiest. Like they're not developing a Mandalorian style, big franchise anchor with that.
Well, I think Cassian Andor is basically the realization of if Han Solo cared about anything except himself, as Leia said, and so it is a familiar archetype, but a totally different trajectory for that character because this is going to be somebody that is so bought in to the idea that he's going to compromise his own morals to accomplish the ends. So if they're willing to stray into interesting moral dilemmas in that way, I think it could be interesting because that's the thing we haven't seen from many of the Star Wars heroes, rebellion figures, is them going across the line.
The gray area, yeah,
And
and
he was the
yeah.
one character that did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The not only that, but also, and we saw a little bit of this in Solo, but the war in Star Wars, right? Like the rebellion is going to have to be dirty with their tactics, and I think you saw this in like the Clone Wars and the Saw Gerrera stuff. But like this is going to be the live action revisiting that part of the Star Wars story. It is like filling in more of the puzzle, so that's why I think it's still a risky proposition.
I have one request. Enough with Tatooine. I know we're gonna get it in Obi-Wan. Enough. Like we've gotten it so much like desert Star Wars, and then we got like hyper urban Coruscant Star Wars in the prequels. Let's get some like Dagobah lush planet Star Wars or something else, just some other like setting. Because I think it just would be interesting to see a different mood that the planet brings.
Yeah. Ahsoka, of course, they're in production now. They're filming that. And Rosario Dawson's great. They announced uh, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is going to be in that show as well, and she's been really great in all the stuff that she's been in, especially the recent action movies that she's been in, and the Acolyte, which we don't know much about, but that's going to be further off. So they're going to do a lot of Star Wars shows. They've had so much success with Mando, with Boba Fett, and with the stuff on the horizon. Happy for them to do a mix of things that feel like limited series, like Obi-Wan, to check that nostalgia box, member berries, and then also take some bigger risks with things like Andor, and I would say Ahsoka is probably a bigger risk as well. Things that for Ahsoka, maybe a springboard for multiple seasons for that character. They're still gonna make Star Wars movies. Don't worry, still gonna happen. So Kathleen Kennedy did get some updates on Star Wars movies. Sounds like the next movie is going to be the Taika Waititi movie, which we know nothing about, but he has done nothing but great things. Yep. So this is, gosh, like if you think of directors working on Star Wars, he's like a writer director that we have so much confidence in. It's as if you kind of like have a sense of you don't know exactly what you're going to get, but you kind of know what you're going to get, right? If you think about Jojo Rabbit and the Thor Ragnarok, even Hunt for the Wilder People, and even What You Do in the Shadows, like it's going to be really well written, really clever, really funny, and really competent filmmaking. And while like J.J. Abrams, as big a name he was, like what we got out of J.J. Abrams was like a visual style that we knew he was good for. And maybe when paired with the writers he was known for, like Lindelof, you got a lot of mystery in those stories. It's almost like Star Wars now going into genre films or genre storytelling set in that universe. That's why I'm very excited for the tone for whatever he works on, for whatever Taika is doing, to be just different tonally than the Skywalker saga.
Yeah, 100%. Humor has not been a hallmark of this universe. K2SO has probably delivered the most humor of anything, probably the closest humor to what Taika tends to bring into the universe as well. So it can be done, but it's going to take like a totally different blueprint for that universe, because I hope he doesn't just use droids to deliver that humor. I think we need some humans and humanoids to help deliver that as well.
Yeah. And then It was also acknowledged that probably after the Taika Waititi movie would be Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron movie that was announced. So I think she's working on Wonder Woman, the third Wonder Woman movie, and and then Star Wars after that. Very excited for them to take their time, figure out what type
Right.
of X-wing pilot. I mean, wait for Top Gun Maverick to come out.
Yeah,
Right?
that's exactly what I was gonna say. I
Right?
was like, ignore ignore any ideas you have around plot. Like,
Yeah.
show me a group of pilots and then them fighting for 2 hours. Check.
Dogfighting and the culture of the Pilots Academy,
Sure.
right? Like, give me Top Gun in the Star Wars universe. Like, make that the genre film. And if you want to go like full 80s style, I'd be okay with that too. Right? She did Wonder Woman 84. Make it tonally just different. Yeah.
I wanted to recall the end of episode 4 where you're like just dropped into this fight. People are calling out terms. You're like, I don't understand. They're not making sense in their sentences. Like lasers are just blasting everywhere. Let's just go.
Well, also Rogue One, the big battle in
Hmm.
Scarif, right? Which you had footage from, Gold Leader in episode 4, and all the actors who were there, were told to grow out their facial hair, big mustaches, big sideburns, bring back the color palette and the facial hair of the 70s, and give me that style of that equivalent of a dogfighting movie. Yeah, that's going to be pretty awesome. Ryan Johnson, who was previously announced to a trilogy of Star Wars films after Last Jedi, they did say that he was still working on a Star Wars film, but they did not use Kathleen Kennedy did not use the word trilogy. So I think it's been not only has I think Last Jedi aged really well, but Ryan Johnson's career, I think, has really matured in the awareness of what he could do. I think Knives Out did so well for his reputation and for his credibility for mainstream audiences. And obviously, Netflix paid a ton of money for the rights to Knives Out 2, so they finished filming that. So while he's busy with that, I think just get more of these reps and filmmaking reps under his belt. I think it's his old movies, Looper, fantastic. Can't wait. I'm still happy he's still at some point going to make another Star Wars film.
He did Attack the Block, right? I think that's his.
No, he didn't do Attack the Block. That was not. That was Joe Cornish, I believe, who's in the same kind of filmmaking camp as Scott Pilgrim director.
I'm thinking of Brick. Is what I'm
Brick.
thinking
He
of.
did Brick. Yep.
Which is I think that's one of my favorite Ryan Johnson. You know what helped The Last Jedi age? The Rise of Skywalker coming out is what really helped The Last Jedi age well.
It's all relative. Yeah.
I'm bummed about this, but I also think Ryan Johnson got a lot of vitriol from a segment of Star Wars fandom. And so a little bit of time and separation, probably a healthy thing here.
Yeah. And then in TV news, Star Wars TV news, it was also announced that John Watts, the director of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, who Marvel had just announced was going to not direct the Fantastic Four film because he wanted to take a break from making movies, and yet Sony had still expects for him at some point to come back and maybe do another series or another Spider-Man film. They announced he was going to work on a Star Wars show for Disney Plus, and it's a code name called Grammar Rodeo, and it's going to be like Stand By Me, but in Star Wars. It's going to be it's a coming of age story.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, that actually kind of tracks to our Last Jedi talk. It actually could pick up from the end of that film, but
no, it's not Broom Boy. I think it's going to be.
No, I know, but I mean, that's the kind of character set that I would imagine would be in a coming of age story, is like somebody akin to a Broom Boy.
I think going into, he obviously did these kind of teenage relationships really well with Spider-Man. He got all the Spider-Man Homecoming was like a perfect Peter Parker in high school movie. So he understands how to create that dynamic. And if he can create a Peter Parker, Ned, and MJ dynamic, but in Star Wars, and do it with like, you just say Amblin plus Star Wars, give me Goonies and Star Wars, then it might not need to have the epic space battles. And it may not be like, it could be for kids, but not kiddie-ish, right? Not like Phantom Menace. I think I would trust him to do this. So very exciting. When did they say this was coming out? No, just in the works. Yeah, just in the
Space it
works.
out. There's
Yep.
been too much Star Wars, so I wouldn't mind them taking a little bit of time. Like this cadence of like 2 or 3 Marvel shows to one Star Wars show. Not that I need that much Marvel, but I think that like sort of like breath in between the Star Wars shows, probably the right pacing.
What is Star Wars will never die. Kishore, what is Star Wars will never die. And neither will the actors, apparently, because the most controversial thing that was said out of this Vanity Fair feature story was an acknowledgement that from Kathleen Kennedy that Solo was maybe not the right move. And the critical reception, obviously, not great. I think they were probably pushing that movie too soon after Force Awakens, too soon after the last time we saw Harrison Ford as Han Solo. And yeah, I think she said it might have been better as a TV show. But the most controversial thing is that her takeaway, or one of her takeaways, was recasting an actor, a character with a younger actor to do a prequel story was not the right way to go, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I go back and rewatch Solo from time to time, and I think Alden, whatever his name, I think he did a
Alden
decent job.
Ehrenreich,
Yeah.
he did an exceptional job as an actor. I don't understand the take from this perspective. Okay, you can criticize Alden Ehrenreich, like he can't, exude the same way Harrison Ford inhabited that character.
Or
But
you can overcome the baggage.
Yeah,
Donald
fine.
Glover.
Yeah, Donald Glover crushed it as Lando. It is the most ridiculous statement in light of that, because the feedback on his performance was like, yeah, that's young Lando, man. That's it.
Yeah. And of course, there's no acknowledgement of the changing of directors, because they had Phil Lord, Chris Miller working on that, and that's a movie. I mean, we'll never get to see, and we'll never know what could have been. And everything they've done since, from Into the Spider-Verse to Mitchell versus Machines, has been gold. So yeah, that's an unfortunate thing to have happened with Solo, and an unfortunate takeaway, because on the other, the subtext there is also acknowledging the success they've had with the deep faking of characters in The Mandalorian and in Book of Boba Fett. And if you say recasts don't work, you look to Obi-Wan, and Ewan McGregor was a recast, and we wouldn't have like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan if deepfake technology was available back then. Is that what she's saying? I don't think that's what she's saying at all. I think it's a hard thing to reconcile. But I hope it doesn't mean that they're gonna, like, what character would they even want to deepfake at this point from the original trilogy? Like, don't there's no need to bring back Leia at any point.
Porkins, the series. Let's go.
I mean, and one of we talked about on the show here with the behind the scenes stuff for Boba Fett. They had Mark Hamill on set to do a performance take, so that there could be a direct tie to how he would have performed the role before the body double and the face double went in, and then they did all the CG work and the deep faking work. So there's a direct tie. That's one way to do it and bring back a cast member. Harrison Ford's not going to want to do it ever again. So is it like Mace Windu? Is like the Mace Windu adventures, and you have Sam Jackson, because you had him de-aged in Captain Marvel. So I guess is that what they're leaning toward?
New characters, not on a desert planet. That's it. That's your formula.
Hey everyone, before we continue on this week, I want to let you know that This Is Only a Test is made possible this week from the Stack Overflow podcast, which you should check out. Wondering which skills you need to break into the world of technology or level up as a developer? Curious about how the tools and framework you use every day were created? The Stack Overflow podcast is your resource for tough coding questions, and your home for candid conversations with guests from leading tech companies about the art and practice of programming. For 13 years, the Stack Overflow podcast has been exploring what it means to be a developer and how the art and practice of software programming is changing our world, as I'm sure it has been changing in their industry as well. The show dives into topics that matter from a listenership of developers, tech enthusiasts, and educators of all stages of their careers at this moment, and provides tangible tools and conversations about the infrastructure in tech right now. With new episodes twice a week, the show dives into topics like Web3, code security, cloud infrastructure, and how AI can solve real-world problems, and more. Listen at stackoverflow.com/podcasts or at any major podcast platform. Now back to the show.
Well, the deepfake technology is working, at least for Star Wars, and was very well received in the most recent Boba Fett episodes. And so I'm curious as to whether that's something that could be used with Stan Lee for his cameos as we switch over to Marvel news, because one of the big things that was announced is that the Stan Lee estate and the entertainment company that owns his likeness rights, POW Entertainment, have signed a deal, and Marvel and Disney have unloaded the money truck so that they can use his name, his likeness, his signature for 20 years into the MCU and beyond.
Marvel, you granted me a fantastic depiction of Thanos on screen. I have no right to ask you for anything, but I'm about to beg you for something. Please do not put Stan Lee, a CGI Stan Lee, in a movie. Just don't do it. It is unnecessary. Now, if they bought that for like the signature, having the name be associated to stuff, doing stuff like in a documentary nature, using his likeness in video games. Stan Lee would show up in all the Lego games as an extra character. All of that kind of stuff that's a little more tongue in cheek, but putting him on screen in the way they did in phase 1 to 3 of the MCU, don't do that anymore. He's past. It would be like if they did that with Chadwick Boseman in some way in Wakanda Forever. There's something about it that is icky to me.
Absolutely. And I think the Stan Lee connection is really relevant to the older comics fans and needed when the MCU needed a stronger connection to the comics, needed the kind of authenticity and the sign off when people didn't have as much confidence in superhero films as a big franchise, interconnected, cohesive piece of storytelling. The MCU can stand on its own now. Like, I don't know if kids today going to theaters care that there's a Stan Lee cameo. Maybe that's why this is a 20-year license that they have and that they bought the rights to. I could see, the Stan Lee. The Stanley Ballroom at on a cruise line or something, right?
Sure.
Like using the name or merchandise, right? The Stanley line of Excelsior products or things like that.
Bobblehead. Let's just do it all. Like,
sure. There's going to be the Funkos. It's going to be the Funkos and the Hot Toys. That's going to sure. They can license that, but in movies, I mean, technically they have the rights to do it. Maybe that's why I'm not in that creative space. I just can't envision right now when and how that would make sense and done in a tasteful way.
Even if they did something tongue-in-cheek, like again with the Watcher in some way, not icky, gross. Don't do it.
Yeah. And CG technology has gone far, but maybe not far enough. And certainly noticeable when it's potentially incomplete, when we're in something as early as a first look trailer, which is what we got for She-Hulk this week. So this is, let's get out of the way, maybe the most divisive thing. The Marvels come out, and Ms. Marvel's not even out yet, and we did see a trailer for that, but highly anticipated. Jennifer Walters.
I think it would say like mildly anticipated. Like this is not Loki. This is not
it's more anticipated than Moon Knight, more than as a familiar
but not
character.
Like WandaVision either.
Sure, I mean as new characters go, as new in this crop, right? We're in the MCU TV show phase now, where they're introducing characters that have not been featured in films before. They weren't riding on trying to wrap up a story with Hawkeye, Loki, Wanda, and Captain America and Falcon Winter Soldier. Now it's about the new characters that are going to be TV first and may make their way, maybe promoted to the big screen. And with She-Hulk, there's like this legal, like, not that the attorney at law aspect of the show, but there's the subtext of Universal still holding the rights to the Hulk, and Marvel not being able to make a proper standalone Hulk film. So the Hulk can only appear in MCU properties as a supporting role. So that's why Hulk's in Thor Ragnarok. That's why the Hulk is in the Avengers films. And that's why the Hulk, Bruce Banner, is in She-Hulk. I think there's a massive fan base for She-Hulk and comic book fans. I think the Dan Slott, the writer, did a 2014 She-Hulk run that this show, I think, basically is about. It's She-Hulk being using her, being recruited because of that she's a lawyer, not because she's a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And then her coming to terms with, like, how she deals with her personal life, and also it's in Futurama terms, it's single female lawyer, but with superpowers.
I was going to say, this is the reason it's divisive is twofold. We'll get to the CG in a second. It's that it's an Ally McBeal type storyline. God, I outed myself as an old person there.
The practice, Law and Orders, yeah.
No, but it's the single female lawyer that is struggling in both her personal and professional life, and there's a humor to it. Frankly, there's a horniness to it. The way the She-Hulk comic reads is that it's satirizing that to a certain extent, and I think that's why that comic had a cult following, is because it really, like, leaned into the tropes in a way that kind of smashes them in kind of the way that comics are designed to. I don't think you get that sense that they're, like, playing with things in a teaser trailer. You just can't. But I think that's the vibe they're going for. But it comes off in a trailer like a horrible rom-com.
It almost too earnest, right? It's like, and maybe it's like they went full genre with this. The logo has been redesigned, because previously the first teaser logo looked like one of those ABC shows. It looked like a logo designed for a David E. Kelly show, and that's the Ally McBeal show. I mean, if you remember, David E. Kelly, who did The Practice and Ally McBeal, also did that unaired Wonder Woman pilot. That and that was like single female lawyer, but with Wonder Woman, and this kind of has those vibes. But I think you make a really great point about what the comic did differently, and maybe that's something that's unique to the form of the comic.
I mean, maybe that's what they're going for here, and we'll get to it, and we'll have to slog through like a couple episodes where you're like, this is too earnest, and then you start to see like the character development and whatnot. So that's one divisive nature. The other was how it looked. Because what did you think when you saw She-Hulk in the She-Hulk form in the teaser trailer?
I don't know what I expected, because they cast Tatiana Maslany, and so it's gonna look like a version of her, just like the Hulk. And the Hulk's face has changed in all the iterations. Like the first in the Avengers, the Hulk was way more like comic book Hulk, and as they went to the Professor Hulk, even in Ragnarok, there was more of a likeness to Mark Ruffalo as he was doing the performance capture for that. So we knew, and She-Hulk isn't the same type of Hulk character. She's more of like a fitness model version of the petite Jennifer Walters. I'm maybe surprised they went full CG face. Maybe in the back of my head, I thought they'd do some type of blending of a live performance capture with CG. The proportions look a little weird, like it's like the face in the few shots, and maybe that's something they can fix. But like the hair is the thing that bothered me the most. Like the hair was so fake. It's hard to do big hair in a full CG character.
I remember I went to a talk at Pixar, this scientist Tony DeRose that worked there had worked on the hair on Sully and talked about just how incredibly complex the mathematics and modeling needed to be to get hair to look right. And I just remember looking at this and being like, they did not import that learning into this render. And it wasn't just that. It's that you naturally contrast how She-Hulk looks versus He-Hulk. And in He-Hulk, he partially because he doesn't have as much hair, you don't get that you don't get like taken out of it because it doesn't look as ridiculously CG'd as this. This was cartoonish. And I'm not sure you can do much about this in the time they have left.
No. I mean, and that's the thing that I think a lot of visual effects supervisors in the comment section and people who've worked in visual effects came out and like to say like visual effects for whether it's for TV shows or films, like they are delivered, they are worked on until the last minute. They can be, you know, it's the animators can work on it, they can tweak things up until the day of release, essentially, because they're delivering specific shots. And the way a trailer is made, they're delivering the shots that are specific to the trailer. Like it's not like live action footage necessarily. Even for live action footage, it's not like a trailer editor says like, I've seen all 10 hours of She-Hulk and I'm going to cut together a 30-second thing, or I've seen entire, 3-minute scenes and just cut a punchline out here. It's like they are pre-cut to exactly those shots, and the shots have been determined by the producers and the VFX teams. Like, okay, we can deliver what we think we'll be happy with for the trailer at this time, knowing that they'll have time to work on it. You can see like direct comparisons in past movie trailers of like the vast differences in the shot scene in the trailer and what was in the final product.
Almost all of those things that you're talking about where we see a difference from the trailer to the final product is not close-up shots of a humanoid. It is almost always
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Okay, that is different. That literally was do not release this movie if his face looks like this. But it's mostly in action scenes. I just think your main character is like there's always going to be, even if they are able to improve it a lot, the way this character is stylized, there's going to be moments where it looks cartoonish and it pulls you out a little bit. It's just going to be. That's how it's going to be with this character. Plus, they have Titania in this show too, and
you got a quick glimpse. You got a quick glimpse of her. Titania. It looks ridiculous, and that gives me hope for the satire of the show.
That's why I almost don't want them to fix it too much and just let it be cartoonish in some way. If that mirrors the tone of the show, where they're going. If they're going for that like full satire, like just let it be a little bit of that. This is so different from what we've seen in Disney shows so far. And I'm laughing because like we're gonna be in the same spot. Like 6 months from now, we'll be like, well, they really set up an incredible first 5 episodes. But can they stick
the landing? Boy, that 5th episode with it being I think it's actually 8 episodes. That's penultimate episode with being a big flashback where you see her childhood trauma. That sure was an emotional one, but sure they got a lot of threads to wrap up.
I don't know what the jury is going to come back with in this case. Yeah.
We need the soundboard for Marvel TV show reviews. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be on the writing and the performance, and, it's going to be on how Tatiana Maslany does when she's not in She-Hulk form. And they're surrounding it. They confirm Wong's in the show, Abomination's in the show. So you have the courtroom drama, you have the superhero stuff. It looks like there's going to still be a bunch of action. And maybe it'll be a passing of the torch in very much the way Hawkeye was for Kate Bishop for Hulk to She-Hulk. Because, if this is received well and they want to put She-Hulk on the big screen, they're maybe can have more time and spend more money and get different bids from VFX companies to do the She-Hulk character.
I'm definitely taking the under on number of movies She-Hulk will end up in.
Maybe Avatar will change all that. Avatar 2. It's called Digital Domain, and say we need, you're done with your Avatar films. Lend us some work on She-Hulk.
Is Avatar 3 the way of the Hulks?
Yeah,
because then I might buy it.
Yeah, the green people. Yes, I She-Hulk you. I see you, Jake Sully. Yes. Okay, we're done with the Marvel stuff. Stick a little bit of Disney because there's one bit of Pixar news. Pixar has shown a first piece of concept art for their upcoming film, their next film. It's called Elemental, and it comes from Pete San. It comes from Russell himself from Up. He, of course, directed The Good Dinosaur, which it's a bottom tier Pixar films, probably.
Bottom tier Pixar film is still a pretty good film, though.
Maybe the worst one, maybe the most bottom of the bottom tier. But he's been a part of their story group. Obviously, still very competent, capable director. And this first image, gives me a lot of Inside Out vibes, almost.
That's exactly what I thought too. I was like, they're leaning into this. I think Soul, even though I think Soul is going to go down as one of the classic Pixar movies.
Yes.
It has these like forces of nature and life, like core components, and we saw that personified most in Inside Out. Saw a little bit in Soul, and I think we're seeing a different kind of personification of it here. So in a way, I was like, repeat story, maybe. So
the logline
is
about they're not represented. It's purely fantastical, where it's like a world they've created, a city environment where the elements are the people who live in there. Where there's water, there's air, there's fire and land, and there are people who exist in those spaces, and it's kind of like a meet cute between fire and water. I think that's the metaphor is about different people getting along together, and it sounds like you mentioned Soul. One of the most beautiful parts of Soul was their rendition of New York. Was their confidence, Pixar's confidence in creating a beautiful looking city environment, and they had city stuff like San Francisco in Inside Out, but this is gonna be apparently heavily influenced by Son's childhood, growing up in the Bronx in New York, and the different neighborhoods there. So count me in. Yes, love films that are kind of inspired by New York culture.
Hey everyone, it's Norm, and I want to let you know that this week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Backblaze. Backblaze makes backing up and accessing your data astonishingly easy. It's the thing that you don't want to have to stress out about. No matter how many places you might have a copy of your files, for us, it's video files, media files, photos. If you have it on a hard drive, a backup local drive, a network attached storage, you could always use an extra layer of security. And for just $7 a month, you can get unlimited computer backups for Macs and PCs on Backblaze. You can back up documents, music, photos, drawings, projects, all of your data, and access those backed up files on the go with their iOS and Android apps. I found that super useful for finding old photos or thumbnails for videos and sharing them with coworkers and being able to get access to that on the go anytime. You can restore that data by mail and get a flash key or hard drive with all of your data shipped to your door in case you have corruption locally. And with Backblaze's Restore Return Refund program, if you buy a hard drive restore, you can send that hard drive back within 30 days and get a full refund. If you're worried about accidentally deleting files, for an extra $2 a month, you can increase your retention history to 1 year. Backblaze has restored over 55 billion files for their users, and they're recommended by the New York Times, Macworld, Tom's Guide, 9 to 5 Mac, and me. Yes, I've been using them for years. You can get a 15-day, no credit card required free trial at backblaze.com/test. Plenty of time to upload and download some files and try out their app. Seriously, back up your stuff and start protecting yourself from potential bad times. Go to backblaze.com/test to get started. All right, back to the show.
few bits of fun news also in the pop culture space. Some Lego news is dropping. 2 new sets. One, well, I wish Jeremy was here because this is something he would get super excited by. Rolling out soon on June 1st is Optimus Prime in Lego form.
I like Transformers too.
You like Transformers too? All right, Kishore.
Of course, Jazz
Optimus
was
Prime.
my favorite. I still have my original Jazz from the late 80s. My metal Jazz. The Optimus Prime Lego set that transforms. It's
that's
1,800 piece set.
1,500 piece set, $170. So it exceeds the 10-cent per piece
but it
price.
Transforms.
But it transforms. You know, Hasbro needs its Skrilla. You know, I'm gonna give out a controversial opinion here. I think it's cool that it transforms, but I think they sacrifice the aesthetics to make that happen. Because in Autobot form, looks kind of janky.
The stickers don't look great. I imagine you got to have the touch to make it transform. And it's you got to have some power. I'm really trying to make that joke work, and it's really not going anywhere, is it?
Yeah, I think
it is a little janky.
Yeah, the head looks too small. Like
I think it's janky because of the stickers too. Make it lack some depth, and it's mostly from the chest up. It looks janky. I think otherwise it looks good. When it's transformed, looks like Optimus Prime. It needs to have a secondary set where it's the back of the van comes out of nowhere to attach to Optimus once he transforms.
I actually like it almost more in semi-truck mode than I do in Autobot mode. Aesthetically. Yeah.
You built a red truck in Lego for $170.
I know, yes. And that's probably why I will not get this set in Lego. But it's been well reviewed. People dig it. It is maybe the first. Maybe they'll do a Megatron next. No, they won't, because they're not going to have a toy gun in Lego. But who knows what they'll do with the Transformers license.
He has a gun.
Oh, yeah, but they're not. But my point is, they're not going to have a Megatron and turn into
that transforms
into a Lego gun.
I like how they did Unicron first. Or
yeah,
I guess
that was just full Hasbro. That was full HasLab. Yeah. And similar to HasLab, there's of course Lego Ideas, which they take user submitted designs and vote on them, and then the Lego team picks the best ones to turn into real recurring publishable sets. And the latest Lego Ideas, that's also, I believe, going on sale June 1st, is Starry Night Van Gogh, and it looks beautiful. So good.
I'm not keen on this one. It does look good. I'm not keen on this because I think it actually loses its Lego-ness. It looks so good. And I liked some of those, like the Vader triptych.
No. Okay. See, if you're talking about losing your Lego-ness, that's exactly where I was talking about. There's the Lego map. There's the Lego, the Lego, the dot art, the pin dot art, the Sarah style art, where it's like they have the Iron Man ones, the Beatles, and the Vader. That's basically pixel art with Lego studs. That I feel like is the cop out way to do Lego art, where you're just using studs and colors as pixels. Here, it's dimensional.
I will give you credit. I like the depth they created, so it layers on top of each other, and you oftentimes don't see layering in Legos in that way. I will give you that.
And the cityscape below comes out, and like you're building shapes that are not just stacked on top of each other. So it's not just exposed studs. Most of this actually is not exposed studs. You're building the curves. You're building that kind of night current, and it has that impressionistic feel to it. And this, of course, the frame is built into it. I think it looks like a very beautiful art piece, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not as keen on this Vincent Bago minifig, though.
Damn. That's the part. Like, so to explain for people who haven't seen it, right? The whole Lego set as assembled is the black frame, is the painting, and it's dimensional. So it comes out, pops out from the frame. The bottom part, the cityscape, comes out a lot. And in the bottom corner, you actually can build a little ramp, a little bridge. And then you have a Vincent van Gogh minifig that sits with a minifig scale representation of Starry Night as well, as if he's looking at the city and then painting his own little version of it. That's the part I would never include in my build of this, the little Vincent van Gogh. I think that's just a nice to have that to the minifig collection, but I don't think it's not appropriate for the actual art piece itself.
Mm-hmm.
Agree. Yep. And that's I believe June 1st as well on the Lego store. One bit of tech news before we wrap up. A big thing in the world of 3D printing, MakerBot, which owned by Stratasys, and Ultimaker are merging for a new FDM printing company, of which I believe Ultimaker will be the controlling entity.
I thought they would just call it Ultimakerbot and just be done with it. That
I mean,
makes
they have not announced the name yet as of right now, so it could very well be called Ultimakerbot.
I mean, it's just right there.
It's right there. Yes.
So I think Ultimaker is owned by like what do you call them? One of those like hedge fund, private equity capital company.
Yep.
And so I think this is all about expanding their viability for rapid prototyping and manufacturing in commercial spaces. It's like sad in some way because MakerBot is so associated with the earliest parts of the FDM printing movement.
Yeah.
But also this just feels like a consequence of where we are with the technology.
Yeah, and it feels like the logical conclusion of Stratasys having acquired MakerBot, and it doesn't completely split them off, although it's going to they're going to wash their hands of MakerBot, essentially let Ultimaker run it while they still retain the IP and the patent rights that the MakerBot has. That's why it's a merger, not a straight up sale and acquisition. Yeah, but they are investing a bunch of, tens of millions of dollars in this new venture. I think there's still a lot of value in the FDM space when you're talking about experimenting with different filaments for prototyping. Obviously, resin has and different types of of 3D printing has kind of leapfrogged it in many spaces, especially the consumer space. And there's so much competition, whether from Prusa or the Creality and all these other FDM printer companies out there. So it's a tough business to be in. But Ultimaker has been a great company, and their products are rock solid. And if they can kind of steer the ship right for MakerBot, then I would be happy for that brand not to die off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which would be the alternative. All right, we are just about to end of our show, and if you've stuck around this far, we're gonna spend a couple minutes wrapping up talking about Doctor Strange 2, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, because as of this recording, Kishore, both you and I have watched the film, and I did want to chat with you about it for a little bit, and we'll go maybe spoiler free for a minute, and then and dive into some spoilers. What'd you think?
I thought it was okay. It is very much a Sam Raimi film, and you got a lot of Sam Raimi isms in it. And there were moments of Sam Raimi horror that were in it, and that's what I was looking for. But I left the film wanting more of that. To be honest, I wanted them to lean even harder into the horror. Like a lot of Marvel films, I thought there was bloat in there. They probably could have cut a couple of the kind of side stories, development stories by 20, 30 minutes. I understand that this movie was about happiness and content and like reaching a level of sort of personal resolution for Doctor Strange, but I honestly didn't buy that transformation in him. And that's primarily why the movie didn't overall work for me. It was beautiful. Like there was so many gorgeous scenes in the when they're like especially when they explode. This is in a trailer, so I'm not
They travel through
sharing it.
dimensions.
When they traveled into different multiversal elements,
Yeah.
beautiful. And you saw so many different um, uh, y- you know visuals in this as they traversed like the different multiverses that I thought was really interesting. But at the end of the day, I wasn't really sold. They shied away from letting Scarlet Witch be a true villain. They were like, villain with a heart, let's go. And they shied away from Doctor Strange really undergoing a big transformation.
I think you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you about the transformation part, the character growth part. Here's where I'm gonna dive into some spoilers. So thank you for listening. If you haven't seen the film yet, go watch the film because I still think it's worth watching, and it's gonna fill in some blanks for whatever they do next in the MCU. But here we go in terms of spoilers. I don't think each character really changed at all. If anything, his character just he got like the smallest bit of closure, but basically like if they were trying to say like you relied too much on magic, and then like at the end he's fixing the watch by hand, like that didn't really land for me as a character development. I think Scarlet Witch was massively underserved, and the amount of like she's just even though I'm not going to argue that it didn't make sense for her to be the villain, totally okay with that, but like the level of emotional trauma and growth that she went through in WandaVision, I felt like was
It dwarfed this.
Yeah. And by comparison, it made her feel very two-dimensional as a villain in this movie, which seems to be setting up for like her kids. And no way she's dead. They're going to give her some redemption arc. I'm sure that's the MCU way. I like America Chavez. I felt like they didn't land her anywhere either. Like in terms of like
her whole character is a MacGuffin.
It is, and they try to give her some depth with her parents and the world she came from, but that's completely unresolved. And again, just like introducing a sidekick character and like Doctor Strange having a kid sidekick type character, like I'm not sure. Like there was opportunity for them to tie into his relationship with like Peter Parker in No Way Home and like at least call back on that. But it's again, it speaks to the lack of character development on his part for it to have come out of nowhere. Like him liking this kid and taking and then having her, train under Wong at the end, like also felt like out of nowhere and an undeserved kind of conclusion. I love the Sam Raimi aspects. I thought the zombie stuff was great. I thought the horror stuff was great. Those chase scenes, Scarlet Witch, like execution wise, it's top tier. Special effects wise, great. So glad they didn't kill Wong. But I didn't. I also like I didn't feel anything watching this.
So the best part of the movie for me is I was surprised by the Illuminati stuff. Even though I watched the trailer, I didn't like the Illuminati part of it. I liked Scarlet Witch coming in there and fucking eating them for lunch. Because that was the horror element of it, is like that's when we got her just fully unleashing her powers. And I wasn't expecting her to just rage kill them in moments. And so I actually like that for the mood that it created around her character, but then they kept softening it. And so like that whole arc where like she's chasing them through the tunnel towards the Book of Vishanti, where there's a couple like little minor jump scare moments and stuff. I thought that was the best like
that was the
montage of the film.
I hated the Illuminati. I hated them as fodder. I hated the way they were presented
Really?
with Mordo. The Illuminati will see you now. Like they might as well say the secret society, the cabal of secret society.
Exactly who they are in the comics.
But you don't need. They don't call themselves. They wouldn't call themselves the Illuminati. That's Marvel, the tongue in cheek and like the wink and the nod being way too on the nose. Like how it just made it so unbelievable. It was like cameo for cameo's sake. I compared how I felt watching even the cameo of Matt Murdock in No Way Home, the cheers, and even like the things that they're able to bring in now because of the Fox merger. I felt things there, and the Sony stuff, obviously, with the different Spider-Man in No Way Home. Here, when Professor X rolls up, yeah, there were cheers in the theater, but like I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, it was going too far when they, subtly played the X-Men animated series theme as he rolls in his
No,
yellow
it wasn't
thing.
wasn't the Fox one. It was the
No,
animated
it
series
was
one.
the animated
Really?
series one. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
because he's in the yellow chair
Yellow
from the
Shell.
animated series.
Yeah.
I hear you. It was cameo season, more than anything else, and that is pure fan service. And they didn't keep it a secret, so you lose a little bit of the benefit of it. It's not earned. Like the Matt Murdock piece was a genuine surprise, but it fit within the story, and they didn't try to do too much with it. Yeah, I get what you're saying. It was a little disappointing. It's not going to retain like the value on repeat viewings. I will give you that.
Yeah.
What do you think of the music fight, which is what some friend of mine, like the Strange on Strange, where he's battling like the Darkhold Strange, and they have like
I like
fight.
that.
I think that was the best probably fight of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it was really creative and different, but still had some like Raimi-esque kind of like point of view shots in it as well. That I thought mostly were good. I wish they used Elizabeth Olsen to full effect. She is terrifying when they unleash Scarlet Witch powers. They just didn't go there.
Yeah. Missed opportunities, and especially by comparison, not going to dive too deep into this, but recently saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, which, if you've seen the trailer, it's another multiverse film, and multiverse is everywhere now, right? It's like Spider-Man into the multiverse, into the Spider-Verse, and Rick and Morty has done it to great effect, and I'd say like Doctor Strange 2 pales in comparison to what Everything Everywhere All at Once does, just in its use of the multiverse and the creative ideas and the visual representation of the multiverse. Like the multiverse is a place to get weird. And we got a little bit of weird when there's that montage of them punching through the stars, but it's so fleeting and it doesn't pay off. Like that multiverse stuff doesn't pay off at the end. So
I have to say, at the end of this movie, I was like, I think I'm kind of done with Doctor Strange as a lead character. And in the post credit, when Clea comes out, who in the comics is like a love interest of Strange and a foil, and I think is the daughter of Dormammu, if I'm remembering correctly. I was like, I don't want to see that movie. I don't know what they're setting up, but I was just like, I don't care about this at all.
Well, the thing that gives me hope is what they could set up is something a little more akin to Guardians, a little more in the cosmic space, less tied to Earth and
look, if that was a setup for Secret Wars, you got me. If that is a setup for Doctor Strange goes back to Dormammu's dark dimension, I don't need it.
Maybe it's Quantumania will tie into that.
Well, I'm assuming Quantumania is going to be the payoff for Kang.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see.
And maybe taking a step back, the bigger question is, where's Phase 4 going? Like the stuff we've seen so far, none of it feels like it's interconnecting. And there's so much of it with the TV shows.
After you watched Loki, you were like, okay, Kang is our big bad, and we're building towards something. And like looking back on Loki, God, the last 15 minutes of that show are so important. They influence Spider-Man No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness. They're probably going to have some repercussions in Thor. We could go on and on. It had big repercussions to what we've seen since. But they're fighting like a universal fracturing and not a person or like it is like pushing against nothing in a lot of way, and that isn't compelling. I think there was something so compelling about them moving against a figure behind the scenes and Thanos that was like architecting their demise over a long period of time, and we just don't have that yet. I thought Kang was going to play that purpose in some way, as like he's going to erase all of their history or whatever, like the typical Kang type stuff, and they just haven't gotten there.
And maybe we're thinking about it differently too, because even in the comics, when there are big crossover events, it's not like it culminates to every actor, every character being on one battlefield. It's
No.
the thing that happens that is the universe changing, shifting event, just kind of has its effects ripple through into the individual series themselves. And that's maybe the tone or maybe the what they're going for here.
But what we've gotten is like something happened at the end of Loki that's had ramifications. We've just watched film after film deal with the same thing.
Yeah.
So
we'll see. There's plenty more to happen, and if it took 3 phases of films for them to do the first 10 years of Marvel, then we are only a few years, 2 years into this next big saga. All right, that does it for the podcast this week. Thank you so much for listening. We have a new outro for this week, courtesy, I believe, of Anthony. I want to say, who sent this in. Yes, Anthony. Yes, Anthony. Or sorry, Andrew. Sorry about that. Andrew K sent this in. And Kishore, good as always to see you. I hope the team you were rooting for in an NHL game won. Yes, good. Yes,
all the hockey happened.
All the hockey happened in everything, everywhere, all at once. All right, here we go. We will see you next week. Thanks, everyone, for listening. See you next time. Bye.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Their pee is being generated and flicked away by 2 hairs at their end of their anus.
Does it help them boost?
No.
What the hell was that?
It was a moment of science.
Yeah, but I don't remember that story.
I don't remember at all. It's been too long. It's too late. Someone remind us where that's from. All right. See you next time. Bye.